ustedes está dando las cosas. Y lo están dando ustedes. Y ese es uno que tampoco
Hey, welcome to the vlog. It is Saturday. I didn't finish a singular physical book this week. I was too focused on fighting for my life during the storm because the electricity went out, right? And the temperature of my apartment was 88 to 92. That was the temperature. I couldn't sleep, I wasn't comfortable, I partially started a few books. The only things I actually did finish was I finished a few audiobooks because the only cool place that I could find for about 3 days was my car. So I sat in my car and listened to audiobooks. I took him in there and we just cooled off because it was so hot. I ate peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and slept in my car for like 2 straight days and I finished an audiobook. The audiobook that I finished was The Year of the Witching, and it was good. I want to say the story was good and the setting was good. This story opens up on an extremely religious community with a lot of dark history, and that history is interwoven in the stories of women, witches, and power. Your main character is a woman whose history is extremely tied to that. Her mother, her father, burned at the stake, disappeared, ran into the woods. Her entire family story is intermixed with this concept of witches and the history that has been buried with them. Well, this main character falls into a circumstance and plague breaks out in this town. And I would say that it falls into uncovering what is true, uncovering where evil lies, uncovering these stories, and it does so in this dark, eerie type of setting. I did enjoy the story and I did enjoy the setting. However, I felt like our characters were so not poorly fleshed out so much as they weren't fleshed out that much. I felt disconnected from my main character. I felt disconnected from everybody else. And I think it made it difficult for me to fully dive into the story. Because like I said, the setting, what was happening, what was being uncovered, what was being done, the places that existed, I enjoyed that. But I still felt like I didn't lose myself in it. I still, you know that experience where you're in a story and you're in it and the world around you disappeared? With this book, I constantly felt like I knew that I was reading. And I think that's because I didn't fully connect with this main character because she wasn't fully developed. She didn't fully, I don't know, I just felt like she was very flat. I did enjoy the story though, so I don't know if I want to recommend it. No, I'm gonna recommend it. I think I'm gonna recommend you read this book because it was one of those books that did give me like this fantasy element that a lot of books do shoot for, but it did so in a darker way that I did enjoy. It is a bit gory. There is magic. There is like a crazy ending. And I do also hear a lot of people say, although I read that on Goodreads, not here. On Goodreads, I saw a lot of people say that this was a debut novel and the author's writing gets better as she has grown. So I think keeping that in mind is important for this book. It had potential, but it lacked in that main character. So I did finish that. I also finished Carrie by Stephen King, and I think I'm gonna do a Stephen King video in order to tie into all these spooky things that I've done. So wait up for that. I'm gonna do a discussion on a few Stephen King books that I have listened to. And I started The Watchers. Now, the reason I have The Watchers going right now is it's the story of a group of people trapped in the woods. And during the day, they can go and hunt, they can go get what they need, but they need to make it back to their cabin at night. And once they're back, they have this big wall, this big window, where these terrifying creatures watch them through that window. and look at them throughout the night. But if they don't make it back by the end of the night, you know, like, oh. And I like it because right now I have no answers. I don't know what's going on. I don't know why this forest is the way it is. I don't know why this specific place that our main character got lost in while she was on her way somewhere else. I don't know how this ties together. I don't know what kind of world we're in. I've been thrown into a situation where I have that trapped feeling that I was looking for. I recently read a book called Devolution, and it gave me that feeling of like isolation, fear, scared, trapped, trying to get out, don't know what's out there, being hunted type of feeling, and I wanted that again, and this is giving me that. I'm only about 20% of the way through it though, so I don't know where it's going. I just know right now I'm enjoying the confusion. I do know a lot of books where you have no idea what's going on. It isn't pleasurable, but the fact that I have so many questions are what's pushing me forward right now. I have that going. I also have partially started several books, and I'm hoping to just kind of clean up what's going on this weekend. Did I welcome you to Summerween? What is this, episode 4 of Summerween? Here's my stack. So I first started this thing Between Us by Gus Moreno. Now, this story is advertised as a more humorous type of horror, and I just wasn't quite connecting to the pacing of the story. I think I'm around page 35 and nothing has happened yet. You're going through a partner who is grieving the loss of their wife. You're going through the emotions and a funeral and just kind of what's around that, but nothing has happened outside of that. And I do understand that we're setting the scene, we're setting the tone, we're presenting this aspect of grief, and I do think grief is really presented well in these first 30 pages. But give me a story. Like let's get going. I know 30 pages isn't much, but like I don't have a direction that's happening. So I just kind of like drifted off of this, and during this hot week, I put it down. I don't think I've given enough of a chance to DNF it. I just think that it's starting off in this slow build kind of state, and I just wasn't in it yet. Then I picked up When the Reckoning Comes. I picked that up, and I don't know why I didn't finish this. Or get into it more. I was hot. I was uncomfortable. I am literally only like 15 pages in. Picked it up, put it back down. I don't have any thoughts on it yet. I don't want to give you any thoughts because I don't have enough to really voice how I'm feeling right now. That's that. Then I picked up Tender is the Flesh, right? This was, if you saw my TBR for this video, I went through all of the first pages for all of these books, all of the first paragraphs for all these books, and I ranked just kind of how I was feeling about the ambiance, the fear, the intrigue that was set up. And this one was easily my highest ranked book. So when I picked it up this week and I reread that first paragraph, I put the book down because I was like, I know this is going to be good, and I don't want my mood to ruin this experience. I put it down. So with that in mind, the fact that I was so excited about how this began, I was like, oh, maybe since I'm in a bad mood, I should pick up one that will match my mood. And one of the books on my list that actually has quite a lot of bad reviews is Nothing But Blackened Teeth. So I got like 10 pages into it, got too hot, I was cranky, I didn't want to read, I was having a bad time, and I put it down. So this is kind of my stack that I would like to clean up this weekend. I would love to be able to get through all of these and start off on a fresh slate on Monday, because if I get through these 4 this weekend, then I have 5 books left in Summerween. So I'm nearing the end of my entire list, and I really am excited to, I just want to do my favorites video already because I already have 2 favorites I want to talk about so bad. So I'm nearing the end of this exploration and I've had a lot of fun. Not to gas myself up, but I only got a little scared one time with Camp Damascus when I thought about putting it down in the first 20 pages. But otherwise, I've been having a really good time. The only thing I do want to say is, sorry, I'm chatty. I haven't talked to you guys all week. Only thing I want to say that I'm experiencing with all this horror that I'm intaking and why I'm glad that I took a break and did some Omegaverse reading. Were those Omegaverse books trash? Yes, I'll link it up in the cards. I had a bad time. But I'm glad I did that because horror books are trigger-filled books. There is unaliving. There are these angry thoughts. There is gore. There is terror. There is fear. There is trauma. A lot of scary stories are built off of a traumatizing, bad, horrible foundation, right? So I feel like I was hitting a point where I was taking in all of these heavy things for the point of like being scared. Because in a lot of books, it's this house is haunted by a traumatized and abused ghost. And then you go into the story of what happened to this ghost. So there are pieces that I'm taking on and it is becoming, I don't want to say a heavy experience, but like subconsciously, I am taking in a lot. So I'm glad we had a break. I'm glad I read some monster romances and I'm glad I read some Omegaverse and I'm ready to get back into it. And I would like to do some cleaning up this weekend. We're gonna go check out a coffee shop I haven't been to before. And I think I'm gonna loiter there for the day. I don't really have any plans today. You know how it be on the weekends. Let's take it slow. Let's relax. After the week that I had, I really just want it to be very low stakes. I want to read. I'm excited to read. I was cranky all week, but like I'm feeling refreshed and I just want to find another good book, have another fun experience, another fun, scary experience. So welcome to episode 4 of Summerween. Let's go find somewhere to sit. To talk about. I didn't finish anything. I have 2 DNFs to talk about from yesterday, which is so frustrating. These are my first DNFs of Summerween, and let's get into it. So I got to that coffee shop on a mission, and I brought 2 smaller books so that I could hopefully crush through some reading. They were open late. I thought I could just hang out, eat tamales, and relax. I started off with Nothing But Blackened Teeth by Cassandra, Khaw. Of my stack of books, this one has the lowest Goodreads rating, coming in at a 2.66. So I didn't know how I would feel about this book. However, a lot of the Goodreads ratings are very split. It's no in the middle. It's either 1 stars or 5 stars, with a lot of people leaning on the 1-star range. I couldn't finish it. I hit a point in this story where I felt as if I were reading with the intent of finishing to talk about it rather than reading with enjoyment. And I was so focused on pushing through and getting to the end and figuring out what might happen. It wasn't I wanted to know what happened because I was intrigued. It was more so I wanted to know what happened just so I could say that I knew what happened more so. And I didn't enjoy it. I did not enjoy this book. It opens up with a group of friends. They all show up at this scary haunted house with the intent of spending the night, doing some spooky things, playing some spooky games, doing some storytelling, doing some ghost hunting. And it's all because the wife wants to, the future wife, the fiance wife, you know what I'm saying? She wants to get married in a haunted house. It's been her childhood dream to get married in a haunted house. This house specifically is a house that way in the past, a husband and wife had come into their wedding day, and the husband passed away. He died. I can't remember how he died. I don't think I got to that explanation. And the wife tells everybody at her wedding, bury me in the home so that I can be here and my spirit can be here for him to return to me. And then every year they bury another girl into the house to satiate and be with that waiting bride. So this home is built on all of these bodies of women, and in turn for this husband that's supposed to return to his wife. That's where all of these friends are. They're playing these games, they're telling stories, they've got candles lit, they're exploring, they're doing spooky things, they're teasing each other. The house is falling around them. I felt as if this book, which is only 120 pages, was so focused on the friendship dynamics in a way that hindered me caring. I didn't care about the haunting because we were so focused on, I didn't even want you here. Did you sleep with them? I don't even like you. I didn't even want to invite you. You want us to break up. I hate you. I'm not even your friend anymore. I felt that so much for 40 pages that I felt the friendship dynamics that were falling apart were emphasized so much, and then the spooky elements were afterthoughts around that. Now the author Cassandra Khaw is a great writer though. I do love the writing style, and I tabbed a section so I could read to you how the scary elements were written because it's so well done. This is a reflection of our narrator thinking on the bodies that this house is built on. How many dead and dismembered women laid folded in these walls and under these floors, and the rafters that ribbed the ceiling, and along those broad steps barely visible in the murk. Tradition insists the offerings be buried alive, able to breathe and bargain through the process, their funerary garments debased by shit, piss, and whatever other fluids we extrude on the cusp of death. I couldn't shake the idea of an eminently practical family, one that understood that bone doesn't rot where wood might, ordering their workers to stack girls like bricks. Arms here, legs there, a vein of skulls wefted into the manor's framing. Insurance against the time when traditional architecture might fail. Might as well. They were here for the long haul. One day these doors would open and wedding guests would pour through, and there would be a marriage, come the cataclysm of modern civilization. The house would wait forever until it happened. One girl each year, 206 bones times 1,000 years. More than enough calcium to keep this house standing until the stars ate themselves clean, picked the sinew from their own shining bones. All for one girl as she waited and waited, alone in the dirt in the dark. I wanted to keep going, but for that to be intermixed, and then it immediately goes into a scene where the friends argue again. I wanted that eeriness and this writing style to just sit in the scary parts. And it hit a point where I was skimming and hoping for the scary parts to happen that I was almost spacing out the story. So I gave up on it. I know I want to talk about it. I know that I want to get into it. I couldn't do that. I wasn't enjoying it. Reading is about enjoyment. I wasn't having a good time. That's my first DNF. Then I went into This Thing Between Us by Gus Moreno. This is another one where I really enjoyed the writing style. This book is a play on a super creepy Alexa type of machinery that is put into a home. It's very advanced, and weird shiznit starts going on. And I love the aspect of this sort of like in the environment being this haunted and scary place, also this play on media and technology woven into the story. It's also a story of grief because your narrator, Thiago, he loses his wife. It opens up with her funeral. And there are so many quotes in here that hit so well. And there's like one quote I remember. I'm going to paraphrase so poorly. And it says, when people tell you to call because they want to check in, it's because they want you to do the work of asking for help. And I was like, oh, I love that. These things woven into this story gave it such a lovely feel, and I really wanted to get into it. But again, I just wasn't quite meshing or getting into the story of it. I do know that a good part of this is understanding Thiago, but 50% into a book that is a slow build, I just couldn't get into it, especially when the trauma and violence and the triggers of this were so intense because it was slow and it was slow building. But then you would get something so violent and I was just not quite into it. However, due to how much I love this writing, I can see myself maybe trying to pick it up a different time, or I just make it a point to pick up Gus Moreno at a different moment in my life. I DNF'd it because I was pushing through with this slow build of a story and this slow tension into the horror. And I just felt so dissatisfied 50% of the way into the book. I do enjoy a book that builds the tension and builds the scariness and gives you the characters and actually builds a setting. However, there comes a point where that slowness can be detrimental to the book. I felt that here. Unfortunately, I felt that here. So I DNF'd 2 yesterday. Wasn't really into it. Now, both of these books in my TBR, I rank them very low in how interested I was after reading the first paragraph. So it feels kind of telling that after reading the first paragraphs in my TBR video, that these books were DNFs for me. I wasn't grabbed in the beginning, and for both of them, that energy stayed throughout. Now, since I have been having such a bad time, I kind of want to lean into a book that I think I will have a good time with based purely off of the first paragraph experiment in my TBR. And that is Tender is the Flesh. This book was the highest ranking of all of my other books due to the way this started. For those of you who didn't see the TBR video, don't you worry, I've got you. For those of you who did see it, please just enjoy how great this first paragraph is. I'm gonna go to the point where I am going to, I'll give you the whole first page this time. Page 1, chapter 1. Actually, there's a quote in the beginning. And its expression was so human that it filled me with horror. Chapter 1. Carcass cut in half, stunner, slaughter line, spray wash. These words appear in his head and strike him, destroy him. But they're not just words. They're the blood, the dense smell, the automation, the absence of thought. They burst in on the night, catch him off guard when he wakes. His body is covered in a film of sweat because he knows that what awaits is another day of slaughtering humans. No one calls them that, he thinks, as he lights a cigarette. He doesn't call them that when he has to explain the meat cycle to a new employee. They could arrest him for it. Even send him to the municipal slaughterhouse and process him. Assassinate him would be the correct term, but it can't be used. While he removes his soaked shirt, he tries to clear the persistent idea that this is what they are. Humans bred as animals for consumption. He goes to the refrigerator and pours himself cold water. He drinks it slowly. His brain warns him that there are words that cover up the world. There are words that are convenient, hygienic, legal. He opens the window. The heat is suffocating. He stands there smoking and breathes in the still night air. With cows and pigs, it was easy. It was a trade he'd learned at the Cypress, the meat processing plant he inherited from his father. True, the screams of a pig being skinned would petrify you, but hearing protectors were used, and eventually it became just one more sound. Now that he's the boss's right-hand man, he has to monitor and train the new employees. Teaching to kill is worse than killing. He sticks his head out the window, breathes the thick air, and it burns. I'm gonna tell you something so crazy. After I read that first paragraph in my TBR video, I purchased a personal copy of this book. So here's the thing. This is one of those books that I think I'm gonna wanna annotate upon a second read, because the point of this story is it's a social horror. It speaks to the world that we live in and just kind of makes it this dystopic, horrifying thing. And one thing that I love is the concept of an author that I quote fairly often. This is Samantha Schweblin, who wrote Fever Dream. I talk about this book all the time, mostly because I like the thought processes of this author. She also wrote a social horror. That's what Fever Dream is. And it's this idea that what is truly scary is something that exists on this line of what is possible and what is not possible, or what is fully imagined. And social horror, I think, toes that line, because this is a story of a dystopic future in which the food that we have is scarce. And so the only resource that we have in surplus is humans. That's this book. And that first page already has me with so many thoughts. This idea that teaching somebody to kill is worse than actually doing the killing. Teaching somebody to do this horrific thing and ingraining in them this idea of awfulness is worse than actually doing the action yourself. Giving somebody else and carrying on this knowledge is worse. I'm excited for this. I'm gonna do this one next because I had such a bad time yesterday, but I want to sit and do some journaling, and I'm gonna catch up on some booktubers that I haven't watched in a minute, and then I'm going to get to reading. It's not a long book, so I'm hoping to have it finished by the end of the day. So usually when I read a book and I do these vlogs, I try to intentionally stop by in the middle and give initial thoughts. I couldn't put this one down. There was no moment in which I felt like I was able to get a hold of myself in a way where I could talk about the book. And I say that in the best way possible. This book just kind of fell apart around itself. It built itself and then crumbled. It was an absolute disaster area. I would like to say that while I cannot fully formulate how I feel, my thoughts on it, I'm gonna put it at like a 4.5 star right now, while also knowing that this book will, I don't know, it's one of those ones that I have to sit on. I do have to sit on this book. I have to sit, I have to think, I wanna parse through it, I wanna reread it. Before I just go on talking about it, I do wanna say, take care of yourself. I am over here giving it stars and stars and stars, but there are so many of the trigger warnings in here. Take care of yourself when you enter into it. But what is this book about? You follow Marcos, and Marcos works at a processing plant. You are built in this society, and you come into this futuristic dystopian society in which a disease has plagued animals, and people can no longer eat them. You are afraid of animals, they can carry on this disease, and it can kill people. And in the event of that, people attempt to go without meat, without that version of protein. And studies start coming out from the government, from labs, from doctors, saying that people can't live without protein, people can't live without meat. So the next step is to eat people. But this book isn't just some cannibalistic story. It goes into so many conversational topics. And when I rate books highly, it's always for a specific feeling. And the feeling of this high rating is the need for discussion and the want for discussion. This is a book club book, in my opinion. This is a buddy read, in my opinion. Triggers, but this is definitely one of those books where if you pick it up with the intent of talking to somebody about it, because you're going to want to, or have somebody in your life that you can just ramble on to or bring up these topics. The only reason I don't give it a 5-star is the discussion topics of the book were very forefront and they were very blatant and they were basically told to you. It was like, hey, here's a thing that could be discussed. Like, it's very in your face, the things that the author was trying to get across. However, even though it was so blatant and apparent and there was no subtlety to these topics, I still want to talk about them. I'm still like, so you're in this world, you're eating people. The things that come up in this book aren't just cannibalistic nature. It's media. It's being a sheep to media. It's being herded by the government. It's being led into something that you otherwise wouldn't have. It's on humanism. It's on animalism. It's on rights. It goes into empathy. It goes into murder. It goes into human cruelty, and it goes into language. And when I say language, I mean the concept of what is right or wrong being affected by the language that you use and the way that you go about how you conceptualize things as words. I say this because you're eating humans. That's what's happening here. But they don't call them humans anymore. They call them animals. They call them heads. They don't call it murder. They use all these words around a cannibalistic act that sterilizes what's happening and it separates it from what it actually is. And society shapes itself around these words and the sterilization and this detachment of what is actually happening. And the ending of this book, like, I should have seen it coming. But it had me. I clutched my pearls. I clutched my pearls at the ending of this. It's not long. Check the triggers. Please take care of yourself. I care about you. Check the triggers. They're here. And I would say that if I had to categorize the horror of this one, it is gory. This person works at a processing plant. So think day in the life of a butcher in detail. Think that. And I think it was interesting because I'm reading this and I'm reading these things, but I couldn't separate myself from how this was a human. I couldn't separate myself from what was happening here. There was discussions of religion in here as well. So there were just little snippets. This isn't a book with a set plot. You're not here for, I have a purpose and I'm getting to that purpose, or the book is set up from point A to get to point C through point B. That's not how this plot is set up. This book was, I would say, a thought experiment. It was a snippet of this worker's life. And you were just placed there. You weren't necessarily given this beginning. You're not given this ending. You're not given these answers. And even as you discuss, the book itself doesn't necessarily put forth the opinion they want you to feel. It's really just putting in your face these very real life problems. However, they're put into this, it's almost like being given a horrific fable in a sense. Like Aesop's fables, you know, those stories where you're given the story like of what, the ant and the cricket, and you learn something from it. However, you do have to parse through it and figure out what the story is trying to tell you. This feels like a horrific fable. It is a societal horror. And I would say what is scary is the limits, the possibilities. Horror rests in human nature here. It's good. It's good, it's good, it's good. There were moments where I was reading like, oh, like it's gory. It is horrific. Was I scared? No, I can go to sleep tonight. However, thinking about the possibilities that rest in human action, scary enough. I'm glad I read this. My TBR prediction was right. The TBR predictions have yet to have been wrong, actually. This is one of my highest rated TBR first pages, and it stood up to those expectations. I really enjoyed this, and I don't think I can even like type out a Goodreads review until I sit on it for a couple of days, but pick it up. Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. If you can handle gore, I would say that is hard. Pick it up and talk to me about it, please. The ending. Pearls were clutched. I hope you're taking care of yourself. I hope you're reading good books. And I'll talk to you next time.